Interesting. Right at the end, when I am wrapping up the tutorial, I'm going to be showing you the adjustment layers and basically how can you use them for enhancing your photographs. Okay, so when it comes to layers, when you first import a photo inside inside Photoshop, it's going to come as a background layer. And frankly, this has never been useful to me. So the first thing I would teach you all would be how to remove this background lock. And the very easy way is to do a double click. And you can see a new dialog box pops up and you click OK, and that's how you unlock it. But that's not the way I do it. I always have my left hand on the keyboard, right? Like just to have all my shortcuts done. So I hold down the Alt key, and if I do a double click, you can see we skip the dialog box and now we just have the layer. And this is much more flexible because now we can change the opacity, play with the blend modes, basically do all sorts of things. And I'll be talking about those in my later tutorials. Anyways, and the next thing I want to teach you is how to create a layer. There will be times when you want to fill in things, when you want to create letterboxes or vignette, basically want to do some crazy things. And for doing all those, you need to know how to create a layer. So it's very easy. You can use the keyboard shortcut Control-Shift-N, but then again you get the dialog box. Sometimes this is useful because it gives you the option of renaming right here, but I don't really do this. So I'm going to click cancel. I do it with my mouse. I go down here and there's an option right here. There's the second box. If you click on this, it looks like a folded page. If you click on that, that's going to create a new layer. Now, if you want to rename this, and trust me friends, renaming is super important inside Photoshop. It doesn't matter what kind of work you do, whether you're into 3D, motion graphics, graphic design, poster making, avatar, etc., whatever you may be doing, digital artwork, anything, renaming layers is very important. So you always have to make sure that you name your layers properly. Okay, so and in order to do that, you just have to do a double click on them and you're going to get this rename dialog box. You can type in anything you want. I'm going to type in fill, and I just want to show you something. Basically how layers work inside Photoshop is that anything which is on top of a layer is going to cover that part up. So for example, right now on layer 0 I have my photograph, right? So basically if I was to fill this layer with something, the fill layer would cover the entire photograph up. And the reason why it is not doing that right now is because, and by the way friends, if you ever want to see basically you want to see the effect of what a layer is doing, if you want to toggle that in and like on or off, you basically have to do the click on the eyeball, which indicates the visibility of the layer. If you click it, basically if the eyeball is not there, then the layer is no longer visible. If the eyeball is there, then it is visible. So if I remove the eyeball from my photograph layer, you can see that right now in my canvas, I'm going to have these checkboard, the chessboard kind of design pattern inside Photoshop. And this basically is alpha. Alpha is a fancy word which means transparency. So right now this fill layer doesn't have anything in it. It is 100% alpha. And if I was to render this, it would be absolutely nothing. If I take this, put it on something else, you will be seeing no difference at all because this is transparent. So I'm going to go to edit, fill. You can use a keyboard shortcut, and I'll be talking about the fill dialog box later in my tutorial series. But if I go over here to fill, and if I keep the use foreground color, basically it's gonna go to black color, mode normal, opacity 100, click OK. You can see that now I just filled my fill layer with black color. And if I switch on my photograph, and if I have my fill layer switched on too, you can see that it is covering my photograph up. So whatever layer is on top of another layer is going to cover that up. Okay, just remember that. Next thing I want to talk about is basically how to keep track of all your layers. And basically that brings me to folders or groups. Folders are basically used when you have a lot of layers. Right now, actually, I have a PSD file that I would like to share with all of you. Sometime back, I did a photo manipulation that I saved somewhere, which basically has a lot of groups, a lot of layers in it. And I wanted to show that to you. Destroying speed art, destroying a city right here, and final PSDs, completed file right there. And it takes a little while to open because it's a pretty big file. But basically what that is it has so many folders in it because it has so many layers, right? So you can see I've made a folder for everything that is over here. So for example, if I have a sky, I've got 3 layers in it. I've got an adjustment layer, I've got 2 photographic layers, and in order to keep track of these, I have put them into a group. And let's take a look at how do you do that. So for example, I want to have these 2 layers inside one folder. I can just select them, and basically you select them by clicking on one layer, holding the shift key, clicking on another, and that's gonna select both of them. Take them and drop them on this third icon right here. Okay, if you do that, that's gonna create a folder. It basically takes them and puts them into a group. You can call this group. I like to call them folders because we have the sign right here. If you want to rename a folder, pretty easy, just do a double click. That's gonna bring you the rename dialog box, and you can call this anything you want. I'm gonna go for this basic, right? And you can have as many groups as you want. As you can see, I've got quite a few groups right here. And if you really can see the importance of group. You can see in fire, I've got 4 layers, actually 5 layers. In file 3, I've got another 4 layers. File 2, more 4. So basically, just having all these layers inside my layers panel could be quite confusing. And as you can see, I'm not really renaming them. So having groups can really make your life a lot easier. And you can have as many groups as you want. You can have as many layers as you want inside Photoshop. Now, next thing that I want to show you is how to delete a layer. Now, this fill layer is not doing me any good. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to drag it right to the icon, which is right at the end, which basically is delete. You can select the layer and hit the delete key. That works sometimes, but most of the time what I do is I select any layer that I don't want to have in my composition or in my project, take them and drag it and drop it onto this recycle bin option. And as soon as we do that, you can see that the layer just goes away. So those are the fundamentals of layers. Now we have lots of things to talk about, like having the blend modes, like multiply. And I don't know why the hell it didn't work, but basically you can have lots of things to do inside layers, and we can have all sorts of cool things like soft light. We can play around with the opacity, but I'm going to keep all of these things for a later tutorial. So I'm going to be moving on to adjustment layers. Now, adjustment layers is a very fun topic, friends. Basically, adjustment layers do all the CC for you. I use them for CC all the time. If you want to see in this completed file, I've got an adjustment layer in almost every almost in every folder. We have an adjustment layer in water. In city, I've got an adjustment layer right here, hue and saturation, curves, CC. You can see this. And yeah, basically one more thing I would like to show, that you can have groups inside a group. For example, if I had a group like say basic, I can take this group and nest it into another group like this. You can see, and you can rename this. You can call this nested group like that. And you can open this by clicking on this triangle, twisty, and you can see this. All these layers are still here, perfect for you. And now you can remove the eyeballs, see what changes does it make. And basically, friends, I know that now seeing the change, you would be getting excited to do this thing, but I would really advise you to not play around with these because I have to make a tutorial for this. Right now, let's just focus on the adjustment layers. Okay, what adjustment layers do is they basically do all the CC for you. They are special effects. Okay, and this is not something that you teach to a beginner, but like I said, I wanted to keep the tutorial a little interesting, and I wanted you all to experiment a little with Photoshop. Experimentation learning is the best, I would say. I learned my Photoshop like that. I didn't go to any classes or anything, so I recommend that, and therefore I'm showing this to you. Basically, if you want to work with adjustment layers, in order to create an adjustment layer, you have to come down to this this coin-like icon. It basically is like a half white, half black coin. Click on it, and you're gonna have this full list. Now, this full list is different adjustment layers. You can have curves. The most of them that I use are gradient map, invert, curves, levels, brightness and contrast, hue and saturation, and solid color. These are the ones that I use a lot. You can go with photo filter. You can just kind of do experimentation and find things out, and do a little experimentation and learn a few things. But I'm gonna go with the gradient map. And as soon as I do that, you can see we have done some dramatic change to our photograph. Now, right now, I don't want to go into the detail of what is a property panel and how do you get all these. But basically, what I want you to do is I want you to select hue and saturation and curves, and just kind of try to create different effects with this, or play around with the graph. I'm going to be showing you what does the graph mean, what are the highlights, how you're supposed to color correct an image, but we'll be doing that all in my later tutorials, nothing now. And that's what I wanted you to do. So basically go inside the adjustment layers, play around with the gradient map if you want to, check out the different tones that are here. Maybe these tones may not be for you because these are photographic toning. If these are not for you, like if you don't see them inside your Photoshop, go to this wedge icon, this circle thing, click on it and select this photographic toning, and you'll get an option, OK, cancel or append. Click OK, and now you'll have all these different layers right here. Kind of cool, right? Just play around with these and see what kind of effects you can create, and that's how you create different kind of cool effects using adjustment layers. And once again, you can do all sorts of things, play around with the blend mode, change the opacity percentage to 50, maybe do this. You can see this is before, this is after, have a slight change in it. You have increase the contrast, increase the drama. I'll be talking a whole lot of things about adjustment layers in my later tutorials.